Greetings, dear subscribers and casual listeners of my channel. Hogwarts is a magical place that every child dreams of visiting. Even many adults, to be honest, would not refuse such an opportunity. However, this ancient castle harbors many dangers. Most people know about them thanks to the movies, moving staircases, the three-headed dog Fluffy on the third floor, the basilisk occasionally hunting half-bloods, the whomping willow, and finally, the incredibly hazardous game of Quidditch. But that's not all. The original Harry Potter books describe many more dangers that young wizards constantly face. Today, I want to tell you about several life-threatening hazards for Hogwarts students that didn't make it into the films. Enjoy. Hazard number 1. Not dangerous enough. Not only do the staircases in Hogwarts live their own lives, constantly moving and thus confusing students, especially first years, forcing them to find new routes around the castle, but the tricks don't end there. It seems that the cheerful builders 1,000 years ago decided to kill as many kids as possible because the staircases not only confuse students by changing direction, but also intentionally try to injure them. For example, some steps have the property of disappearing just before someone steps on them. The only way to avoid such a tricky trap is to remember where you can and cannot step. Quote, "There were stairs that vanished unexpectedly when Harry was climbing or descending them. So, you had to jump on those stairs." Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I sympathize with the first years who have a tough time at first. Senior students, of course, already know the locations of all the traps and easily avoid them. But even they sometimes make mistakes, especially Neville, who couldn't remember the location of the fake steps even by his 4th year. Quote, "Neville's leg sank right through a step halfway up the staircase. There were plenty of stairs like this in Hogwarts. Older students had developed the habit of jumping these surprises, but Neville's poor memory was famous throughout the school." Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. But don't think this only concerns the absent-minded Longbottom. Anyone can fall into the trap if they get too deep in thought and lose vigilance for a moment. Mad-Eye Moody would not approve. For instance, in the 4th year, Harry himself stepped on a false step while preoccupied with other thoughts. Quote, "Harry went down again and suddenly fell through a hole with one leg. He was so preoccupied with Mr. Crouch's strange behavior that he forgot about the false step where Neville always fell." Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, hazard number 2. Not everyone will make it. While most students reach Hogwarts by carriages, first years have an exciting boat trip. This wonderful tradition allows newcomers to enjoy the impressive views of the ancient castle where they will live and study for the next 7 years. However, if Harry's boat trip was calm and magical, it doesn't mean it always happens this way. Anything can go wrong at any moment because only Hagrid is watching over dozens of boats, and he couldn't use magic for a long time. What if a storm hits on September 1st? What if the waves start overturning boats? Or someone falls into the water, like in the Goblet of Fire? Yes, in the 4th book, it rained on September 1st, which somewhat spoiled the first impression of Hogwarts for the first years, as all the newcomers, and not just them, got soaked to the skin before reaching the castle. Colin Creevy's younger brother Dennis even fell into the lake. Of course, nobody at Hogwarts considered abandoning traditions for the sake of children's safety. Quote, "Everyone was shivering from cold and excitement, standing in a row along the teacher's table facing the rest of the school. Everyone except the smallest boy wrapped in Hagrid's huge moleskin coat. The coat was so big on him that it looked like he was peeking out of a black fur tent. His sharp little face, peeking out from the collar, was painfully excited. Standing in line with his desperately nervous comrades, he caught Colin Creevy's eye, gave 2 thumbs up, and whispered excitedly, 'I fell in the lake.' He was clearly proud of it. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire Hagrid took care to warm the child. Dennis was lucky that the giant squid was nearby, because during a storm his disappearance might not have been noticed. When the news reached Hagrid, it might have been too late. But fortunately, everything turned out fine. Quote, "Awesome!" exclaimed Colin, no less excited. "It must have been the giant squid, Dennis." Wow! Dennis was amazed. He didn't even hope for such an adventure in his wildest dreams, falling into a stormy, bottomless lake and then being pulled out by a huge sea monster. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Hazard number 3. The Spirit of Mischief. Of course, such a selection couldn't do without mentioning Peeves, the poltergeist inhabiting Hogwarts. This mischievous spirit loves to annoy everyone. He fears neither students nor teachers, boldly taunts even McGonagall, and the only one who can tame him is the Bloody Baron, the ghost of Slytherin. Quote, "Not doing anything," clucked Peeves, launching the next water bomb at a group of fifth-year girls who screamed and ran into the Great Hall. "They're already wet anyway, right? A little sprinkle." And he hurled another missile at a group of just-entered second years. "I'll call the headmaster," Professor McGonagall threatened. "I'm warning you, Peeves." Peeves stuck out his tongue, threw the last grenade without looking, and flew away up the stairs, clucking like a madman. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Most of Peeves's pranks, though unpleasant, do not pose significant danger to the students' lives and health because the poltergeist rarely aims to harm anyone. He usually amuses himself by dropping various objects, throwing pieces of chalk at kids, dousing them with water and ink, or simply teasing, insulting, and making indecent noises. Quote, "Crutches floated in the air before them. As soon as Percy stepped forward, the crutches turned menacingly toward him and began to attack. But they didn't hit, stopping a few centimeters away, as if saying he should leave." "That's Peeves, our poltergeist," whispered Percy, turning to the first years. Then he raised his voice. "Peeves, show yourself." Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. However, some of Peeves's pranks are hard to call innocent. As usual, first years, mostly unable to fend off the poltergeist, suffer the most. For example, he dropped crutches on Neville's head on the boy's first day at Hogwarts. Quote, "Peeves stuck out his tongue and disappeared, dropping his crutches on Neville's head." Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. From time to time, the poltergeist likes to ambush students and suddenly throw heavy objects or even furniture at them. Quote, "If I were you, I wouldn't go that way," said nearly headless Nick, embarrassedly floating out of the wall in front of him in the corridor. Peeves plans to play a prank on the first one to pass Paracelsus's bust in the corridor. "The prank is that Paracelsus will fall on their head?" Harry asked. "Oddly enough, yes," Nick replied dully. Peeves never distinguished himself with wit. "I'll try to find the Bloody Baron. Maybe he'll rein him in. Bye, Harry." Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. When Umbridge took power, Peeves became truly unruly, flooding entire floors, releasing tarantulas on students during breakfast and throwing entire stacks of parchment, likely containing homework, into the fire. This is one of the rare cases where the poltergeist's intentions were noble, since he genuinely wanted to ruin Dolores's life, but it didn't make it any easier for the students. Hazard number 4. The main danger. But ultimately, the main danger for Hogwarts students is the students themselves. Not only are they almost deliberately pitted against each other, but everyone carries a dangerous weapon that can be used at any moment. In the adaptations, it is occasionally mentioned that casting spells in the corridors between classes is prohibited, and the films have repeatedly shown students breaking this rule and using magic against each other. Hermione immobilized Neville, Ron wanted to make Malfoy eat slugs. Draco tried to attack Harry and was instantly punished by Moody. The Marauders openly tormented young Snape. However, in the books, students resort to their wands much more frequently as a means of resolving disputes and conflicts. The consequences of this are often much more severe than what we saw in the films. The hospital wing rarely empties, and Madame Pomfrey is never idle. For example, in the 4th year, during another clash between Harry and Draco, both Hermione and Crabbe were seriously injured. Both had to seek help in the hospital wing. For Hogwarts, this is a typical situation. Such incidents certainly don't surprise anyone here, since students often cast spells at each other. Quote, "A couple of stunning spells, a disarming spell, and Neville very gracefully used the impediment jinx," Ron said casually, handing Hermione her wand. But the real standout was Ginny. She hit Malfoy with the bat bogey hex. Big-winged creatures, his whole face is covered with them. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. If some Slytherins start threatening or insulting half-bloods, justifying the actions of the Dark Lord and Death Eaters, or speaking ill of the recently deceased Cedric, rest assured the Gryffindors won't tolerate it. They will grab their wands without hesitation and make the offenders regret their words. Don't expect them to play fair or noble. Fighters for justice won't wait for their opponents to draw their wands. They won't hesitate to cast a spell on an unarmed and unsuspecting student from behind. If such a thing happens on the train, where there are no teachers around, they definitely won't hold back. Keep this in mind if you plan to visit someone else's compartment with ill intentions. The risk is high that you'll simply be thrown back into the corridor like trash. Quote, "Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle lay unconscious in the doorway. Ron, Hermione, and Harry stood in the middle of the compartment with their wands out. They all had cast different spells, and not just them. I thought I'd keep an eye on this trio," Fred simply said, stepping on Goyle before entering the compartment. He had his wand out. So did George. He carefully stepped over Malfoy. "Interesting effect," George remarked, looking at Crabbe. "Who used the furunculus curse?" "I did," Harry admitted. "Strange," George said cheerfully. "I used the leg locker curse. Apparently they shouldn't be mixed. Now this guy's face is covered with little tentacles. Okay, let's throw them out of here. They're not enhancing the decor." Ron, Harry, and George dragged Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle into the corridor. They were still unconscious and looked awful because each had multiple curses cast on them and they had mixed with each other. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. And don't forget that Hogwarts students enjoy using their fists as much as magic. Believe me, Hermione's famous punch is not the only instance. Harry and George Weasley, along with Fred, were once even suspended from Quidditch for a fight on the field. Quote, "Maybe you remember the smell in your mother's house," Malfoy continued, retreating. "And in the Weasley pigsty, do you recognize the familiar stench?" Harry didn't notice how he let go of George. A moment later, they both rushed at Malfoy. He completely forgot that it was happening in front of all the teachers. The only desire was to hurt Malfoy as much as possible. There was no time to draw a wand. With the fist holding the snitch, he struck the enemy in the stomach with all his might. Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Harry Potter and his friends faced many dangers within the walls of Hogwarts. The movies showed us only part of these adventures: the Forbidden Forest, the Chamber of Secrets, and dangerous magical creatures. However, the castle of Hogwarts hides many more mysteries and secrets that remained behind the scenes. Let's move on to lesser-known but no less fascinating facts about the School of Magic that didn't make it into the books or movies. Fact number 1. The castle possesses its own individual and independent consciousness. Hogwarts Castle, the majestic structure, has a unique individual and independent consciousness. It is not just an old castle, but a living entity imbued with ancient magic. Its history begins with four great wizards: Godric Gryffindor, Salazar Slytherin, Helga Hufflepuff, and Rowena Ravenclaw. They founded the school in a remote part of Scotland, each contributing their magic to the creation of Hogwarts. This powerful energy was absorbed into the walls and became its heart and soul. Godric, with his bravery, imbued the castle with a spirit of determination. Salazar added his serpentine cunning and secrets. Helga contributed friendliness and tolerance, while Rowena added wisdom and a love for knowledge. All these qualities merged into a single entity, bringing Hogwarts to life. The school became more than just a place of learning. It acquired a consciousness that could react to events within its walls. The moving staircases are a vivid example of Hogwarts consciousness. In J.K. Rowling's books, the staircases are described as changing direction, leaving students confused. Harry and his friends frequently encountered this feature. In one scene, Harry recalls finding himself on the wrong floor due to the sudden movement of a staircase. This phenomenon is the result of the magical consciousness of the castle, which lives its own life and loves to play tricks on students. Another remarkable example is the Room of Requirement. This mysterious room appears only when someone truly needs it. Dobby, the house elf, told Harry about it when he needed a place for secret meetings. The room changes its appearance based on the needs. At one moment, it could be a cozy study area, and at another, a training room for Dumbledore's army. This is further proof that the castle senses and understands the desires of its inhabitants. Many mysterious events at Hogwarts can be explained by its consciousness. The portraits that come to life on the walls are not just paintings, they hold the memory and a part of the soul of the people depicted. They can talk, advise, and even move between frames. For example, the portrait of the Fat Lady, guarding the entrance to the Gryffindor common room, often helped and warned students of impending dangers. Fact number 2. Hogwarts has the highest number of ghosts among magical residences. Hogwarts is not only alive but also populated by many ghosts, making it unique among all magical places. It is the oldest magical castle in Britain, and its long existence has attracted numerous spirits. The high level of magic surrounding the castle acts like a magnet, creating the perfect habitat for ghosts. Historical records indicate that at various times, more than 100 ghosts have lived at Hogwarts. These souls, remaining in the castle after death, became an integral part of its history. They guard the secrets of the castle, interact with students, and even participate in the educational process. One of the most famous ghosts is Nearly Headless Nick, the ghost of Gryffindor. His story of death and attempts to join the Headless Hunt are detailed in the books, adding depth to his character. But Nick is not the only well-known ghost at Hogwarts. There are others, like the Bloody Baron, the ghost of Slytherin, shrouded in mystery and legend. He instills fear in many students with his eerie story and grim appearance covered in blood. The Baron keeps many of Slytherin's secrets and plays a significant role in maintaining order among students. The Grey Lady, the ghost of Ravenclaw, is also known for her tragic past. Her real name is Helena Ravenclaw, the daughter of one of Hogwarts' founders. She often communicates with students, sharing wisdom and helping them in difficult situations. Her story is filled with tragedy, and she is always ready to share it with those who show interest. These ghosts have a significant impact on the students. Many newcomers are initially afraid of spirits, but over time they get used to their presence. The books often describe cases when ghosts come to the aid of students. For example, when Harry, Ron, and Hermione were searching for information about the Chamber of Secrets, it was the ghost of Moaning Myrtle who helped them find important clues. In everyday life, ghosts frequently interact with students. They participate in celebrations, help solve problems, and even host their own parties. One of the most memorable events is Nearly Headless Nick's Death Day party. Harry and his friends were invited to this grim celebration, where they met many other ghosts. Fact number 3. The founders of Hogwarts created the Quill of Acceptance and the Book of Admittance. The founders of Hogwarts left behind many relics, 2 of which are especially important for the school: the Quill of Acceptance and the Book of Admittance. The Quill of Acceptance is a magical quill that begins to write the names of children who have shown magical abilities. It is sensitive to any magic, even the weakest. When a child first displays signs of magic, the quill automatically writes their name in the Book of Admittance. The Book of Admittance is kept in a special tower, strictly off-limits to students. Its role is to confirm or reject the name entered by the quill. The book is very strict and does not write a name unless it is sure of the child's magical abilities. Only with the book's agreement does the name of a new student appear on its pages. The selection process for students begins with the Quill of Acceptance. As soon as a child shows magical abilities, the quill flies out of its ink pot and attempts to write their name. However, even the slightest whiff of magic can satisfy the quill. The book, however, is not so easily fooled. It waits until the magical abilities are fully manifested before agreeing with the quill. The interaction between the Quill of Acceptance and the Book of Admittance is perfectly balanced. The quill, sensitive and receptive, easily writes names, while the book, strict and uncompromising, verifies the true presence of magic. Only with the agreement of both does a child gain the right to study at Hogwarts, preventing squibs and other non-magical children from entering the school. There have been instances where the book refused to record names. For example, in one story, a boy's name was written by the quill, but the book shut and did not allow the record to remain. This boy, as later discovered, was a squib, a child from a magical family but without magical abilities. Thus, the book protects the school from students who would not be able to undergo training. Sometimes the book waits until a child demonstrates impressive magical abilities. Such was the case with Minerva McGonagall, who as a child showed extraordinary talent by making her toy broomstick fly around the room. Only then did the book agree to record her name, confirming her right to study at Hogwarts. Fact number 4. Hogwarts students once had to wear tall pointed hats. Once upon a time, all Hogwarts students wore tall pointed hats as part of their everyday uniform. These hats were a mandatory element along with the robe and house tie. The uniform was strict and elegant, emphasizing the status and discipline of the students. In old photographs, you can see students proudly wearing these hats, symbolizing their belonging to the great school. Today, such hats are used only at ceremonies and official events. For example, in the finale of Philosopher's Stone, we see students wearing their hats during a festive feast. The hats have become symbols of important occasions, maintaining a connection with past traditions. They are worn at the sorting ceremony, graduations, and other significant events in the life of the school. The change in uniform traditions happened gradually. Over time, students began wearing hats less often, and they became less mandatory in daily life. Modern students prefer more comfortable and practical uniforms, corresponding to the spirit of the times. Despite this, the hats remain an important part of Hogwarts history, reminding everyone of its rich heritage. The reasons for changing traditions lie in the changing social norms and preferences. Students began to more actively express their individuality, and the strict uniform rules were relaxed. The professors and school administration decided to adapt to the new times while preserving the main elements of the traditions. Modern customs, although different from the old ones, still support the spirit of the school. Students are proud of their belonging to Hogwarts, even if their uniforms are less formal. For example, many students decorate their robes with pins and patches, reflecting their uniqueness and interests. Thank you for watching until the end. I hope you found it interesting. If so, don't forget to like, share your opinion in the comments, and subscribe to the channel.